Welcome back to the podcast, everybody.
Yeah.
Episode 2.
Welcome back to the Waka Family podcast. We're pretty excited to be able to do this a second time. It's exciting.
Yeah.
So, this week we're heading into Christmas. We've got a couple more days. Sunday is Christmas. Today is what day? Friday? Friday. It is Friday. When you live in Fiji and you're in Fiji time, it is pretty easy to lose track of the days, even though we're working. I'm always calculating to Canadian time zone for work there, and I'm like Thursday there right now for work, so I'm always triple checking what day we're actually in.
And we're not actually in the village right now. We're enjoying the view of the ocean. We're house sitting for a friend in the Sigatoka area, and so he has a home right beside the ocean. It's quite nice.
Yeah, it's nice, and he's got a couple weeks that he's in New Zealand and visiting family, so we said we'd come stay and watch the house. So we need to be on this island for work anyway. And then we had a few friends come in from Canada. They're coming back to their village to see some family for Christmas. And so they spent a few days with us. They have kids similar age, well, not similar, but, roughly within the same age category as our kids. So that's nice to hang out and just have some time to connect. And it was nice that we were on the ocean, so the kids all had something fun and different to do. At least for ours, they're not ocean boys, so.
And we're trying to make some fun plans for Christmas Day, which is like we said, in 2 days. But it seems like all the hotels have really changed the way that they operate since COVID. It was everybody was super friendly, looking for all the business. You could come and use pools, and now it's we're calling hotels and stuff, and they're nope, we're not letting people in anymore. You can you can go use use the restaurants.
Yeah.
You're not allowed to go into the pools.
You can't even pay for it right now. I think a lot of the hotels are quite booked for Christmas, which makes sense. I think me and you need to realize next year, if we want to do something like that, we'll have to book in advance or book a room. Not that we'd be doing that.
Also, the hotels are so expensive. I mean, they're just out of our.
Oh my goodness, the prices have
range.
Skyrocketed. I think
we stayed at a hotel when we came back from Canada. I mean, we won't name the hotel, but it was somewhere in Nandi. And it wasn't a top of the line hotel of any sort.
Really mediocre. It was nice. It was fine.
And we spent just over a couple $100 a night for a room that would fit the four of us. So that's not a big family, 2 adults, 2 kids. And obviously the pictures look way nicer than, just real estate and stuff like that. Otherwise you're not going to book. So the pictures are always a bit nicer than the rooms actually are. But it was tiny. It was so crammed. So for over a couple $100 a night, Fijian, you don't get much right now.
No.
And that's something that we've thought since since things have started to open up after COVID. It's man, Fiji's got to be careful with how much we charge. And
oh, definitely. When I'm looking at tourism and where I could go from Canada, Canadians typically go to Mexico, and there's a new flight coming from Vancouver direct to Fiji, which is really exciting for us, and we are going to be using that flight all the time, and we want to be supporting that flight.
Number one customers right here.
Yeah, we want people to keep it open for us because we want to be going back and forth to Canada directly. But the price of hotels is so high that it's hard to compete. It's hard to not just go to Mexico at an all-inclusive.
Yeah.
And pay less and get way more for it. Or even go Bali.
Yeah, go to Indonesia or Southeast Asia or something. I mean, we're talking about pretty comparable flight times. I mean, Fiji might be a bit closer. But, I mean, when you come to Fiji and you have to spend, for the 5-star resorts that are around the Nandi area, you're looking at $700 to $1,100 Fijian a night.
A night, yeah.
And where you could probably spend way less than half of that in Thailand or Indonesia or something, and your money goes way, way further. A meal is cents on the dollar compared to Fiji.
Yeah.
And so, I know, it takes money to run resorts and stuff like that. And I'm far from talking about like price controlling and make sure hotels can't, telling them how much they can charge. But at the same time, Fiji, it's beautiful, but I mean, there's a lot of beautiful places that don't cost this much money
Yeah.
to go on holiday.
Well, and I would love the country to be thriving with tourism, and I think they just have to be careful not to go and overcompensate for the times that they suffered in COVID, because people will go to the other places because they're compensating and making it cheaper, as I've seen, to get people into their country to rebuild their tourism.
Yeah.
So I think that's one thing that Fiji should be a little bit careful of, because we want to see this place flourishing, not having to compete so much with the other countries.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
And like, the world is obviously not becoming any smaller. And it's like, I mean, like this flight from Canada, like now you can go directly from Vancouver to Fiji. And I've heard, I was talking to somebody a while ago about how, the Indian middle class in India is supposed to like double or triple in size, which means that there will be like another like billion people in the next decade who will be moving up into like the upper middle class kind of area. So all those people will be looking to travel, which means places like Fiji will only get busier and busier. But from India and from the places where you have that high population and people who will be, economies that will be growing, they're going to just go to Indonesia or Thailand. Like Fiji's a long ways away. So some of them will come here for sure. But we need to keep it looking attractive. And we also have to be marketing to those kinds of places. Because I think in the marketing that I've seen, like we only market to like New Zealand, Australia, and a bit in the US and a tiny bit in Canada.
And not much in Canada at all. When we talked about moving to Fiji, like when we tell people, oh, we're moving to Fiji, people are like, Fiji? Oh, like the water? And I was like, yeah, like the water. Like it's, and they're like, so,
oh yeah, Fiji water.
Like where is that?
Get on Fiji water, actually. Probably some of the best marketing.
For the entire country.
Yeah. So
Well,
I don't know what kind of like throwbacks they get for the job that they've done in marketing Fiji to the world.
So true.
I hope they got some kickbacks.
Well, like they're representing well. Like everybody knows, oh, Fiji water. And they go, ooh, Fiji water is like high class. That's luxury. And then they go, oh, Fiji must be luxury and high class, right?
Yeah.
So I think that's one thing that the education on like where is Fiji, what to expect in Fiji, what Fiji has to offer, and then making it accessible for the rest of the world and having it competitive within price. So when I'm looking at a holiday coming from Canada or the US, I'm going, yeah, I could totally go to Fiji as an option instead of just going to Mexico or Hawaii as I normally do, because it's roughly the same price. And why not try somewhere new? It could be my best vacation ever. And I've always wanted to go somewhere like Fiji.
Yeah, like I don't know what companies, hotels, companies like Fiji Airways have done for homework in countries like Canada, because there is, some very prominent travel, what do you call it? Travel, like places where you go to book your, they book all your tickets and everything like that.
Oh, yeah.
Travel agency.
Yeah, definitely.
That could definitely push Fiji, I think. But like people, like you said, like people are like Fiji. The Fiji's like it's like on a bottle, and it's like all the way across the world. They don't know that they can hop on a flight in Vancouver and get off in Nadi.
Yeah, and I think people are pretty lazy. Like when I tell my family, like, oh yeah, the flight's only like, 10 and a half, 11 hours. Like, it's not bad at all. They're like, oh, that sounds like a nightmare. Yeah, but it's the same as
going from like where we live to London. Shorter than that.
For sure. So Europe. I'm saying like the marketing has to be like, hey, we will feed you, put you to bed, and you'll be there in the morning.
Yeah.
Like it needs to sound pretty easy, breezy to get through it, and then there you go, you land in your holiday. Because even when we fly to Mexico or things like that, it takes quite a long time to get to your resort, so it's a trek.
Yeah, like from where we are, we usually go from British Columbia to the province over, then down to Chicago, and then Chicago we get to go to Mexico.
Yeah.
So that's 2 stops, and you're getting off planes, getting on the planes, you can get to Fiji quicker than you can get to Mexico now.
Yeah, and
Yeah.
I think like really people in Canada at least, or people I know, they relate when I say, oh, Fiji, and they go, oh, where is that? And then I say, oh, it's like right next to New Zealand. They're like, oh, okay, I know where New Zealand is.
Right.
And so they kind of have a better geographical idea that way. So I think there needs to be kind of an explanation of, you know, where they're going, how easy it could be, and then getting competitive so that way, you know, the country can have way more tourism. Like if we were attracting people from all over the world, not just New Zealand and Australia,
Yeah.
think about what we could do in this country with like the actual like tourism income
Yeah.
that could come into the country. Like people would make way more money, and then people could capitalize on homestays way more in villages in more rural areas, because a lot of our friends would be excited to do more of a backpacking thing or off the grid
Fiji's
thing.
Yeah, and Fiji's a lot more like that than say Mexico, where it's very, very catered. Where you
Yeah.
just like, you get to the airport, somebody's holding the sign. You get on the bus, you get off at your hotel, and you get into your room. Everything's sorted. Like you can you can have none of the five senses and have an amazing holiday in
Yeah.
Mexico. Whereas Fiji's very like create your own menu. You know, like you either have had to been here before, or you got to be a bit adventurous to come to Fiji, because there's a lot of like unknowns for people. Like, how do I get to here? And when I get there, how do I get to the next spot? And it's like, well, if you only knew, it's actually not. It's not difficult. Like, just come here. There's taxis. It's pretty easy to get around. But people are nervous when they go to a new country. It's like, am I going to get ripped off? You know, what's going to happen?
Yeah. Yeah. And I'd love to see eventually, like, if we got more tourism into the country, more of the street food coming out and people kind of putting that out there for tourists, because people want to taste what's local, but like make it into a way that's pretty accessible for people. I think they shy away from some of the street food they see, like barbecues, because they're not really sure what they're getting into. And there's not a lot of it, you know, so there's one and they're like, well, is this one stand? You know,
Yeah.
it's not like a vibe of like lots of food on the street and people out eating and
Yeah.
that kind of thing. So I always think that kind of development would be interesting.
And I think Fiji, if I look at Fiji, like the country as a business, I thought before, it's like it doesn't offer enough. Like,
Why is that?
well, I think it's like there, because we're in the middle of the ocean. Like, say when you go to Thailand, you can go to Indonesia, you can go to China, you could go to all these different places that are in Asia. Where when you get to Fiji, you're in Fiji and that's it. And yeah, like our culture is beautiful, but I think like to market Fiji as kind of like the hub of the South Pacific, and to
Yeah.
use Fiji to market, to use Fiji as a platform to market the Pacific, because like I think we are probably the most dominant of the small Pacific countries and most well known. Like when you say Tonga, people are like, Tonga, like what's Tonga? Like when you go to Canada and the United States,
Oh, yeah.
right? Or Samoa or Kiribati or Tuvalu, like people have never heard of this. But
Yeah.
if we marketed Fiji as like, come here and you get the whole menu, like you can go from Fiji, you can go to all these other countries, like
Yeah.
I think it would expand the opportunities, and
Yeah,
people would
yeah,
feel
that's
like,
true.
yeah,
Like if you were able to hop around to the different like Pacific nations,
yeah,
and it not be very expensive to just like hop on a flight and jump around and spend your money, within Oceania.
yeah,
Is that what it's called, right? Like this,
Oceania,
yeah.
yeah,
I think that would be really interesting to kind of see how like the Pacific would develop in that way and bring more money in. I think like when John and I came first to Fiji, like when we were first married, like I had a hard time kind of figuring out outside of the village, like how the culture functioned and how it worked and kind of what there was to do here. And we weren't ever here as tourists, I guess I should say.
yeah,
But I wasn't sure, like it took me a long time to kind of get the vibe of like how even Nandi functions, or like how people culturally blend. And I don't know, like I wasn't aware actually that like there was a like Itoke population and then like an Indian Fijian population that was really predominant. Like I didn't know those things coming into the country because what I'd seen on the tourist brochures was mostly the Itoke community, and I didn't realize that actually Fiji's a really like blended culture and that there was just more to it.
Yeah.
And I love that. Like when I come in and like I love eating like Indian food. It has so many flavors, and oh my goodness, like when the aunties make it for you and they make like roti and they use all like the spices that like I don't, the secret spices that I don't know how they make. Like it's so good. I can make curry, but it is not like what your mom's making. Like that's another level, and it's so good.
Yeah, I
and
make a good curry.
yeah, your curry is decent, but it's not like.
Okay, on a scale of if 10 is like some of.
You're like a 7.
Oh.
But it's like it's good, but it's not. I don't know. Oh, like our landlord upstairs, she'll give us curry.
Oh my gosh, that'll change your life.
I just want to eat at her house every day. I'm like, can you just be my mother and feed me?
I don't
please?
eat anymore actually, unless I eat from her. I'm just giving up.
Just give it up.
Yeah, just give it up.
The curry life. Actually, for Christmas, for dinner, we're going over to
Ali's house.
Ali's house. The guy
Some people might know Ali.
Yeah, the guy that we posted up for the taxi driver that's really honest. Like, we've never actually met his entire family. He keeps saying, oh, I have to have you guys over for dinner every time we see him. Christmas night was kind of the only day that worked for them. And so we're going to go over and we're like, hey, you know what? That sounds like you got an amazing Christmas dinner. I don't know what they're going to make us, but I can't wait because I love it. I just love the Indian food.
I've started fasting already.
John and I came back from Canada a little chubby, so we just said, okay, we gotta fast and get in shape. So we've been in Singatoka doing sand dunes every morning, walking on the beach, just kind of getting out there and doing a little bit more while we have the time to do it. So it's been a lot of fun getting that a go and to be able to walk on the beach every morning, but...
Oh, how about that dog fight out there today?
Oh, okay. So, yeah, that was really intense. There's so many stray dogs here. Like, there's 2 groups of 12, I think, that I've seen so far.
Significant amount of canine action.
Yeah, and they're so aggressive. And then the friend that we're house sitting for, he's got 4 dogs. So they come with us and they guard us as we walk and chase off the strays. And
but one dog today, and I think the group turned on itself. Like our dogs are just fine. They just stuck beside us, the ones that we're looking after. But like the group that we walked by, like after we got by them, they just started like they were playing in like a tide pool, and it just turned into a fight.
I've never seen anything like it. They were drowning one of their own. And I'm not a big animal person, but it just made me feel sick. Like we were a long ways away, and I was making sure our friends' dogs were all with us.
Which
and
they
then
were.
Obviously, I'm not going to go save this random dog because there's a pack of dogs that I don't want them attacking me.
You'd be the person getting drowned in the tide pool.
Yeah, but it was really,
anyways.
It was
pretty
savage.
violent.
It was a lot. I haven't ever seen something like that. I didn't know that was a thing. But in Fiji also, there's a lot of wild dogs. The dogs on this beach, they're pretty aggressive, but they'll leave you alone. There's some guys that ride horses. We saw horse races the other day on the beach. That was really cool.
That was cool.
Yeah.
Just friggin' giving her down the beach, hey?
Yeah, but it's crazy that they have these horse races on the beach, and yet there's not crowds and crowds of people. Like, it's not really promoted. There was trophies and everything. Like, things like that in Fiji. That's cool.
That's really... Yeah, you're so right, actually. Like, there's just underground horse racing. Maybe it's illegal, and we're actually, like...
No, they had trophies. Okay, no, they're fine. I hope so. But it was cool. And like there's a guy out here training horses, and he like trains them how to do like the military.
Apparently, you could bring a wild horse to him and give him $60, and he'll break it in like
train it for you
a couple days and give it back to you totally rideable.
Yeah, I'm like, I need to get my horse over here.
I know.
Hello, that's amazing.
I know.
Yeah, I think Fiji has a lot to offer.
So even like those rogue local horse races that we had going on the beach right in front of us yesterday.
Yeah.
Like how cool would that be if like, somebody could tell somebody at the hotel just down the road, like, oh yeah, on Thursdays there's horse races. It's like you can go and bet on horse racing.
Yeah, and actually make it
That'd
into
be
like
awesome.
a betting thing, or I don't know if that's a great idea, but or just make it something that people can pay like a $10 ticket to
Oh, there was
come.
guys betting down there.
Oh, for sure
Oh
there
yeah.
was.
Oh yeah. They were like, yeah.
Yeah, well, that's what the excitement was
Oh
about.
yeah.
But I was excited. It was fun.
Yeah, I didn't have any skin in the game. I was excited.
Yeah. And I think like if we could find those cool local things that people do that entertain them and that they're excited about, I think you could bring way more people in to make it an actual revenue stream for people.
Yeah.
But I don't know. I guess that's just kind of John and I
That's
love
part of
business
Fiji though, and I usually explain that. I mean, not to drag this topic on forever. I usually tell people like they're like, "What is Fiji like?" You know, when we're talking to people in Canada or something, and it's like Hawaii probably like 20 years ago. It's
Totally.
like the
Definitely.
beaches are a bit more pristine. There's less development, but it's way more create your own holiday. Like you got to have, like I said, a bit of that adventurous side. So where Hawaii is like very refined, Fiji would be unrefined, and it's great. It just depends who you are at what stage of life and what you want to do.
Yeah.
And once you've been here once or twice, it's super easy. Like you would have no fear in coming.
Like out by us in our island, we live on the second biggest island, close to Labasa area, and we've got a friend that they own Nukumbati Resort. And it's like an eco resort, and it's this like pristine white sand, beautiful island. And they said it's hard to get tourists out there or aware of it, just because they're so off the beaten path. Oh my gosh, it's stunning.
It looks like it's like
it's postcard.
For sure postcard, but also like it's like Jurassic Park on your way out there. Like the mountains, like
It's
those
true.
straight up cliffs. So when you get to the island and you look back at the mainland, it's like totally untouched. There's a couple villages. Like compared to this island,
That's right.
It's like, and there is no sound of vehicles.
And they're like the only resort that has access to the Great Sea Reef.
Yeah.
And it's so cool. And actually, we were just talking to them last week, and they said they're going to focus on probably the diving part of their resort. I believe the page that they're using is called Great Sea Reef Divers.
Yeah.
And you can find them on Instagram or Facebook. But they're a great couple. They both have their diving certificate. Don't ask me what level, but it's a high level. They could teach you diving and all this kind of stuff. And they have a new boat to take you out on. And they took us out on that, I think a couple of months ago, because we were in Canada for a long time.
Sick.
Awesome boat, great experience. And they were just such a beautiful couple. And
the Great Sea Reef is I believe it's the third largest barrier reef in the world.
Yeah.
And they're the only place that has access to, that you can stay and you can be there within 40 minutes.
Yeah.
And they have all the dive
And they said
facilities and
even for them, the reef is so big, they haven't even explored a lot. And I'm not a big ocean person. I'm a little bit nervous of sharks and those kind of things. I'm a lake girl. But the nice thing is Fiji doesn't have any of these massive sharks. They've got a lot of reef sharks. And the guy
people in Bangor would probably beg to differ.
We're not going there. Anyway, the guy that you go diving with, I like going out with Leone because he knows the sharks on the reef and he knows their temperament.
Mm-hmm.
He goes out there so much and he'll say, oh, there's this certain shark that came, let's get up and switch areas, because he can be kind of fussy sometimes, or he is really intimate with his surroundings. And I feel so good about being out there as such a newbie in the ocean, someone that has some ocean phobia. He makes me feel comfortable. I feel confident going in with him, and we're just normally spearfishing and free diving.
Yeah.
So
Great Sea Reef Divers, check them out. I think they're on Facebook and Instagram.
Yeah.
But the pictures and stuff that they get is insane.
Yeah, well, and Nukumbati Resort is just stunning. So that's a really random place in Fiji. They're not on the tourist zone. They live by us. We're in the bush, and you have to drive an hour from us down the coast, dirt roads. It's pretty out there, and that's why it's so special. They've done a lot to actually make that area happen. Where if you're in Nandi or Singatoka or this area where we are right now, this is kind of I like Tourist Central, like this is where most people see Fiji and experience it, and they drive along this coastline.
Yeah.
It's also beautiful over here, but it's
Maybe
more
we'll have them on the
populated.
podcast. That'd
Pardon?
be cool. Maybe we'll have them on the podcast. Great CV divers.
Yeah, we should
Yeah.
totally do that. That'd be
And
great.
yeah, because they also have a lot of influence in their community with the villages along the coast and stuff like that. And I think it'd be cool to hear their opinions.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. I definitely, yeah, they're really cool. I love some of the things they were doing with the environment and things like that. So we'll let them come on and we'll talk about them and their lives and things
How about the
like that.
last week with the elections?
Ooh, yeah. Well, I'm not a citizen, so I haven't voted. Jonathan has.
Oh, I voted. I had to stick my finger in the ink, so I have proof of me voting, and my finger still looks like. All the kids ask me what's going on with my finger because it looks like I smashed it with a hammer. But that just means I voted. But there's been a lot of controversy, and I think as of today, today we are on Friday the 23rd of December. They're meeting right now because there's a coalition that they're supposed to be making, and so
Yeah,
and
it's been really like up and down. Like it's a little
it's
bit
been tumultuous
yeah.
without any violence.
Thank goodness.
Happening.
Yeah, that's
and
good.
so yeah, like we all have our opinions on what should be and who should be and the way things have turned out. But I just hope that nobody gets aggressive and gets crazy. I've heard that there's already been some stuff going on, so I hope that nothing gets
and we'll
intense.
see with the results. I can see there's possibility for violence coming up. And we, obviously we'd hope that people are not participating in that. We want everybody to be safe. I think sometimes you can look at the situation and go, oh, I can see why that developed in that way. But, obviously for our family, we're like, okay, well, we don't want to be anywhere near that. We don't want to have to deal with the fallout of anything. But yeah, it's an interesting time to be in Fiji with the elections.
Don't hesitate if you're listening to this, you're like wanting to come here for like visit your family or go on a holiday, like still come. It's not like a third world country, like in sketchy.
No, not
election.
at all.
Yeah, it's just uncertain times as far as politics go. But
Yeah.
I mean, with that, just like the thing I'm thinking of is, and it's so cliche, but it's like just be the change that you want to see. Like politics will politic, and politicians will do their thing. But it's like at the end of the day, you have to just pursue your dreams. It's so cliche, but again, it's not going to make that much of a difference to like what you want to do.
Yep. Yeah, you work hard and you have to work with whatever systems that the government, whichever government goes into power, what policies they set up and rules, and you have to work within them. And you just pursue your dreams and do your best to make sure that's within the guidelines that the government, has put out. I think doing business honest is a really important thing. Like when John and I first moved here, we were setting up our lease. And obviously we came to Fiji right when COVID hit the country. Yeah. That was pretty hard for us. Like, to be honest, we were incredibly broke because of it. Our business in Canada got shut down. Not shut down, but like the revenue got cut in half. So we were not making an income. We had enough income from the business to pay our staff in Canada, pay some of our taxes. And we were just kind of struggling to figure out, okay, how are we going to feed our family?
Because we came over here with a budget in mind and, how much we could take from our business back home. Like, because we set that up to be kind of like a passive income. And so luckily we had a great management staff and still have in Canada. But we just had to turn all that money back into the business basically to keep it running.
Definitely.
And so when we came here, we're like, oh, we'll sell our car and we'll sell our off-road vehicle that we used to have fun, because our fun thing was camping and getting away from cell service and disconnecting. And we'll use that to like buy a boat here, because you can't go camping in Fiji. Like there's not really anywhere to get away, because every road has a village or some sort of purpose, and you can't really get away from people. So we're like, okay, we'll sell our stuff, we'll get a boat, and we'll do like remote island camping or find a beach that we like and
Yeah.
stuff like that. But we ended up buying a tractor instead, and because we didn't have that money coming from Canada, so things changed.
Yeah.
For sure.
And well, we also had plans to build within the
house, yeah.
first 3
Yeah.
months. So that was a pretty stressful moment for us, like coming here and realizing, wow, okay, we're not going to have our own space. And that was not the game plan. And to be honest, I don't know if I would have agreed to move to Fiji if we didn't plan on having our own space. Only because John and I have been married 12 years. Like coming up this summer, we've lived together on our own without family, just the two of us and then our children for at least, I don't know, 9-ish years. So that's a hard thing to like be on your own, be independent, be adults, and then all of a sudden move in with family and have to deal with the dynamics of having other people's input on your children, what you're eating, what you're doing during the day, the comments, just on like how you are functioning.
And don't get us wrong, like this would happen anywhere in the world. Like,
yeah,
like it's not a Fiji thing or whatever. It's just the dynamic of living with family. Like, I love my parents, but I could never live with them full time because I'm my own adult and I make decisions that they don't agree with all the time, and
they
vice
probably
versa.
would never want to live with you again,
And
right?
they wouldn't want to live with me. And it's not hard. It's no hard feelings. It's just that's, I think, the way that life goes. But I mean, also maybe some families are different than others. But even when we were leaving the village the other night, I don't think you understood, because Nai was talking to me in Fijian, but she's like, be careful with the kids. Make sure you watch them very carefully. Make sure they eat well and all this stuff. And I'm like, yeah, I know. I live, like we lived by ourselves for many, many years. It like raised, Aliki and Seva for like 3 or 4 years before we came here. But I mean, she's also just doing the grandma thing, right?
Well,
sometimes it's like, sometimes when you live with family, and maybe there's some of you listening to this who do live with family, and it's like, ugh, get off my back.
yeah, but it's also very different. Like you come from Canada, where when you are of a certain age and you're getting married, you go and live on your own. Like you leave your family. You don't stay typically and live with mom and dad. You become your own family and have your own bills and your own things. I don't think financially it's the smartest move, but culturally that's just what we do. And you get to struggle by yourself and build your future, I guess, and do it alone. And parents like to have input, but you kind of also are like slowly like, hey, mom and dad, like I'm an adult, like enough input. That's kind of how like we slowly distance ourselves from mom and dad. But in Fiji, like families live together for generations, and a lot of parents, like you find like people have kids and they're like, here, mom and dad, raise my child, because that's how they were raised and that's really normal for them. So grandma and grandpa are the parental figure and tell you what to do, where for us it's like, no, I had this child, this is my child, I am the parent of this child, I tell the child what to do. So it's a weird and difficult dynamic, us coming into a house where generationally they have the expectation of they're the boss of our children, and in our minds we're the boss of our children, and trying to like make sure that we also love each other and have a good relationship while living in the same house. So yeah, definitely just complicated, and I think everybody's done a really good job at trying to make it reasonable for everybody else, and trying to be open about communication and things like that. But
COVID was definitely wrench thrown in the plans for everybody, though, and so I'm far from feeling sorry for us. I know a lot of people had it way worse. But it was just something that we had to figure out, and I think we're better for it, and I think all our businesses are better for it. But
and I think John and I just went, okay, comfort is not important. Making money and having stability for our family is important. So let's invest in a tractor. Let's make that a business. Let's start looking at how we could make money in this country and what would be the best businesses we could open and the most successful ones. And it took us, we did pay a lot of dummy tax and just figuring out
a lot of dummy tax.
Maybe
we should call this podcast Dummy Tax.
You have a lot of names for the podcast already.
This is episode 2. dummy tax.
Dummy tax, what we've done. But I think the best thing, the precedent that we set when we first moved here, I think the best thing we did, we were first dealing with our lease. And I think within dealing with our lease, we found out that, you can do things maybe in a shady way that is not the best way to get things through.
Yep.
And John and I said, no, you know what? In business in this country, we really want to be honest with the way that we do business and make sure
what is it called? Above reproach, eh?
Yeah. And that we set a standard of honesty in the way that we conduct ourselves and don't allow ourselves to be tempted into the easier, quick path of getting things done.
Yeah,
and
because it's just like everything. I mean, there's temptations all over the place. But if you play the long game consistently, and you always play with the long game in sight, I mean, it's pretty easy to do the right things and to do things in the right way.
Yeah. And I think we learned, some things through doing our lease. And then when we started the tractor business, we found that was one thing that was part of our dummy tax is we realized, we need to make people pay up front.
Yeah.
Before we do the service for them, before we plow their land.
Money in my hand first.
Yeah.
Money in my hand. No, but that's not how. No, don't worry. The money will come from FSC or Growers Fund or some of these other institutions. Like, okay, but money in my hand first, then my tractor will come.
Yeah.
And I'm my own boss, so I don't answer to anybody. So if I say I'm coming, I'm coming. And now there's a precedent set in our area that
you'll show up.
That I'll show up.
Or a driver will show up.
Yeah, and people, if they don't want to pay up front, then they can go find another one.
And the reason for this is because you only have so much time in your day to run a business, and if 50% of that time is chasing the money that is actually already owed to you, then how are you supposed to be productive and make more money when you're just racking up a long list of people that you have to chase every day? And then also that hinders relationships with people because you start resenting them because they didn't pay you.
Yeah, I saw I showed you, there's this new cooperative of some sort that they're going to be raising cows.
Oh, yeah.
And I think the way it works is that you can invest in a cow. It's called the Bulma cow something or other. And if you give a monthly amount every month, at the end when the cow is fully mature, you can either pay for it outright for a family function, or it can be sold and then you get the money. I think, that's how it works.
Yeah, something like that.
But the hardest part about that business is going to be getting those monthly payments for so if you have 100 head of cattle, it's imagine chasing 100 people down every month. Or say you have 50. Say you just have 50. That'll be so much legwork to get monthly payments from people. Because people don't have credit cards here. Not yet.
Not yet.
And so getting that, it's cash in hand. And so it's very hard to get payment from people in Fiji. It just is.
Well, and
so I hope the best for them.
There's an interesting concept here, especially within, I don't actually know about the Indo-Fijian community, but I know in the Itoke community, when people don't pay or people do you wrong or something, people are not I better report them to the police or, there should be a consequence.
We'll see.
They'll be there's a saying, and I don't know how to say it in Fijian, but it's kind of the land has eyes and the land will eventually get them for their shadiness.
Right.
And I'm I'm not really fully on board with it, but also I'm wait, so we're just leaving this person to they're not going to pay you or they robbed you or something, and you're just going to be okay, you'll see.
Yeah.
And I'm what? But I want to see justice done, and I want you to report them to the police so they don't continue to do this, because maybe the land won't get them until they're 80.
Right.
And
exactly.
How many people are they going to rob until then? That's not okay.
Yeah. Well, you're not going to, we're not here to change the culture. That's not what we're saying.
No.
We create our own culture around the businesses and in the family unit. So if you're listening to this, if there's something within the culture of the country where you're from that you don't want, then don't have it be a part of your family or be a part of your business. And have values like that you aren't going to stray from for your business or for your family. Like for our kids, it's like we don't lie. Like I tell them sometimes, like, like, because they have obviously lied to us before, and I just tell them, my sons don't lie. We don't lie. We always tell the truth.
Yeah.
Because that's also playing the long game.
Like, you'll be in less trouble if you tell me the truth, even if it's a bad truth.
Yeah.
Then if you lie to me, you're going to be in way more trouble.
Yeah.
Like, it's going to be a crazy difference.
Yeah.
And we talked about this the other day, John and I did. It's just like, culturally, culture is beautiful and every culture is different. Our Canadian culture is beautiful, but very different from Fiji. And Fiji's culture is very beautiful and also opposite of what we experience in Canada most of the time. Completely opposite. But in both places, John and I always say, like, let's make sure we focus on the culture of what Jesus wants, and then our other cultures have to fit around that. And if something doesn't fit within Jesus' culture, then throw that out regardless of how predominant it is in your culture.
Yeah.
It doesn't have to be, and Jesus should be priority. And if that means that we can't participate in something within our culture, then we just don't.
Yeah, and I guess this can be like our devotional part of this episode is like let your yes be yes and your no be no. I actually don't know where that's found. I'll look it up here. But
I think we've done a video on that before. It's
yeah,
just
we
like,
did do a video on that before.
If you're going to say yes, make sure that that's an honest yes. And that's part of Jesus' culture. He wants our yes to be yes and our no to be no. And that's part of, especially in Fiji, you hear a lot of people say yes, but they don't like to, have conflict, and they don't want to be offensive to you. So they'll say yes, and then all of a sudden they won't show up. Let's say they say, "Oh yeah, I can drive you," and you're like,
"Well, I think in when I talked about it in our YouTube video, I was talking to a guy, and when he was working and making money, then people would ask him for his bank card or something like that. Or no, he didn't keep any cash with him. He put it on into his bank.
Yeah.
And then he wouldn't carry his bank card. And so when people ask him if he has any money that they could borrow, he'd say no. And I was like, okay, like that's actually, it's good. Like
that makes sense.
Yeah, that makes sense. Like, don't give away your hard-earned money. But you can also, there's a way to honor the Lord in that situation, you know, and just say, yes, I do have money, but it's being saved.
Yeah.
And so not saying like no, and then leaving your bank card and then saying that, oh, I've lost my bank card or whatever, when you know where your bank card is. It's just like, you take actually something that's beautiful and good and you turn it into something that becomes a lie. And I think that that's how, I mean, not to get like real like biblical or whatever, but I think that Satan would love that we, take things that are good or should be good and make them into lies.
Yeah, and God's also asked us to be a good steward of our stuff, meaning like to take care of our things.
Yeah.
And I think, not lying about those things and taking proper care and telling people no because I'm caring for my things and taking care of stuff, that's okay. And
so this is Matthew 5:37.
Go ahead.
All you need to say is simply yes or no. Anything beyond this comes from the evil one. And that's exactly what we're talking about, right? It's like just yes or no. Anything more than that, it gets complicates things, and it comes from Satan.
Totally. Yeah. And that's not just in Fiji. That's in Canada or all over the world. Is like people everywhere have a hard time to like be honest, and don't hear John and I saying we're the most honest people in the whole world. We try
I've never lied
to
in
be.
my life. Lie.
That's right. We try to be. We want to be upfront, and we want to make sure that we're doing our best. And I've even caught myself randomly like telling a lie where you're like, oh, this won't hurt anybody and it'll avoid some awkwardness, and having to like pause it and go back and go, okay, that wasn't true. And go fix that situation and like remedy it, because
even honesty in conversations where it's not a lie, but it's hard to address the actual issue because it might hurt a feeling. Yeah. It's like, well, the honest thing to do would be actually say what you need to say. Yeah. And have it hurt for you and for the other person, because in the long run, they'll actually be better.
And he's not saying in a vicious way, just like if you need to fix something or say something.
We've had conversations with employees and stuff like that where it's like, this is not a fun conversation. I don't like firing people. I don't like telling people or asking people hard questions,
Yeah.
but you have to,
Yeah.
because if you don't, it just ends up being painful in the
That's
long
true.
run.
Well, and it's interesting, like building a business in Fiji. I've really enjoyed it. Like, it's a different dynamic because currently, right now, all of our employees are Christians. Weirdly enough, we didn't do it on purpose. Or if they're not Christians, they believe in the Bible and in Jesus. And it's been really cool being able to use the Bible and some foundational stuff about how Jesus was a leader and in the Bible, and trying to build them into leaders and telling them, okay, how you can become a leader is to become like Jesus. And Jesus was humble and he was a servant. And so you have to serve your staff. You cannot have this huge ego.
And in Fiji, that's such a foreign kind of idea to how to run a business, because business owners are lord of the land.
Yeah.
And you don't question them, and you don't suggest new ideas, and you sure as heck don't serve your staff. But like, when I was out like picking garbage up in the parking lot, people are like, "What? What are you doing?
But you're the owner.
You're the owner." It's like, yeah.
And I, out of
I
anybody,
expect my
should
staff to
set an example for my staff.
How can I expect my staff to go pick garbage if they don't see me picking the garbage?
Yeah. I have to be first. I have to be humble, and I have to go do the dirty things to show my staff this is how we do things when we work, and be their servant and show them to do other things. And hopefully they will just follow suit as you encourage them. And then also going into, we've been talking a lot about work, the difference between like confidence and arrogance, and how you should be confident in what you're doing. But when that confidence turns into pride and arrogance, that's sinful. And that's something that we want to get away from, and be able to lead your team with confidence and humility all at the same time.
Yeah.
It can be hard to do. It definitely is hard to do. But going in and going, I will serve you, and I'm confident enough to know that I can serve you and show you how to do things better, and then lift your staff up. And I think we're kind of always telling the people that are surrounding us, like, work hard and work yourself out of a job to the point that you're so amazing and you've made your other staff so amazing that you need a whole new position. I'll build you something because you're so amazing.
Yeah, because that's why it's so fun to do business anywhere, is because you can open up people's perspectives. It's like, what? Well, if somebody else knows how to do my job, then I'm at risk of losing my job. And it's like, yeah, you are. But surprise, you don't get fired, you get upgraded.
Yeah.
Like, just because you don't need to be doing that job anymore doesn't mean that we don't need you.
Yeah.
It means that you're obviously a quality person who's trained somebody to do your role. So now you get to move up, and either we create a business around you, because business is not about product as much as it is about personnel. When you're talking about service-based businesses, not product-based businesses. And so what we've found is that like you can sell whatever you want if you have the right people. But if you don't have the right people, you can have a great product and it won't sell. Or you won't be able to make it last. You won't be able to keep selling the great product because you don't have the backup.
And I think like in Fiji, it's been interesting kind of building the business the way that we want to, because we're really trying to focus on customer service, focus on honesty, and focus on quality of product.
Yeah.
And we have a coffee shop in Sengunga.
And this episode is actually brought to you by Fresh Tea and Coffee, which is in Vanua Levu at the moment. Maybe coming to a city near you, somewhere in Fiji. Eventually. But right now we are in Sengunga, and the way to get to us is while you're on your way from either Savusavu to Labasa or vice versa. We're in Sengunga, and you turn towards the police station. You go like a couple 100 meters up the road, and you'll find a beautiful little coffee shop situated right in our little farming ghetto.
With air conditioning.
Air conditioning, nice couches, a place to just chill for a couple seconds. The service is friendly and it's fast. The products are really good.
So you can sit down, relax, have a chat with your friends, or you can get on the road and keep going to where you're off to. And guess what? We're not charging extra for takeaway.
Yeah, there you go. You want takeaway? we don't charge extra.
Yeah.
And so it's fast, it's good service, and we serve organic Fijian coffee,
Yeah.
which is super exciting, from a company called Bula Coffee, which is located in Singatoka, actually, where we are. And they support like 5,000 like people, like local people.
Yeah,
who
that
go
pick wild
wild coffee. So these coffee trees are already out in the jungle, and they identified that there was this really rare breed of coffee beans that grew wild in Fiji, and they're like, okay, we'll pay people to go and pick. You don't have to maintain a plantation of coffee. This stuff is already there. Go pick it. We'll buy it from you.
And they pay them a good price.
Yeah, and create this whole ecosystem around doing good. And I think one of their slogans is like, doing good tastes better, or something like that. And I love that because it really is. And so we're super, super proud to be serving Bula coffee.
Yeah, and our slogan in Fresh Steam Coffee is better together. And we believe that we are better together with other great Fijian businesses, that as a community, we're better together. Our sticky buns and coffee taste better together, all those types of things. So we're really proud to have a shop in Senganga. It's a small, not even considered a town yet. We would call it a hamlet, I guess.
Yeah.
Just a junction town that people go through.
Pretty much. It's not fancy. It's far from fancy, but we got a little gem in the ghetto. That's how we describe it.
Oh my goodness. Don't say that.
Hey, it's beautiful inside.
Yeah. And we love Senganga. We're so happy to be there. We're pleased to have that kind of as our home base and our
100%.
hometown. And the people are awesome. So
I wouldn't be from anywhere else.
Yeah, that's right. So
we were talking about the coffee business and training our staff. And one thing that I was thinking about while you were talking is how nice it is to be able to offer people a place to work where they can grow locally, because there are so many people, and there's probably people listening to this podcast right now that are considering going overseas to make money and to support their families in Fiji. And that's actually something that I wanted to talk about on this episode, was how many families we see that usually don't have a father figure around. And how that's what I want to do with Waka is, in the beginning, we have to create these businesses from the ground up, because we don't have the money to just acquire awesome companies. But eventually, just to create this whole ecosystem of all sorts of different companies, tech, service-based, everything, product, accommodations, whatever it is, so that people don't have to leave anymore. Because there are even people that I know that the dads go overseas and they send back money, and that's hard to watch. It's hard to watch.
It's hard to watch broken families. It's hard to watch the kids growing up without a father figure.
Yeah.
And the things that they get into and the people that they become because of that.
Yeah.
It's hard because the wife's sitting at home. A lot of times it's the wife that's at home, and they're lonely and not always doing anything productive, and they're missing their husband, and who knows what the husband's lifestyle looks like overseas. They're lonely as well. Yeah. And it is not a healthy family dynamic to have. Like, God's created us to be together, as man and wife, and, flourish in that way and build our families, and children do best under, a really healthy, strong family, where, especially with boys, I see like our kids would be raised very differently if it was just me, mom, raising our boys. They'd
be so soft.
They would not be that. I'm pretty strict. Let's be real. But it would just be different. Yeah, he disagrees, but I think I'm a firm mother.
Yeah, I just think it's so important to have a father figure around, and you'll never get those years back. And you can have all the money in the world and have a house and all the stuff, but you never get the chance to raise your kids again.
Yeah, like your relationship will never be the same. You did not invest in your children in the time that was so important to invest in them.
Yeah.
And like, you've missed those years, and all of a sudden they're grown, and then you want to maybe speak into their lives, but you haven't been there the entire time. Like,
yeah. It was awkward enough between, my dad did a great job, I think, of raising me, and I love him, and we're great friends now. But even we were together all the time, like even more than most families, because we my parents were missionaries in different parts of the world, so a lot of time we're just isolated to our own family unit. And even in that intimate setting with my dad, it was hard to have conversations with him about certain things because that's just life. So imagine if you don't grow up with your dad around. Like, what are you going to talk to your dad about if he hasn't been there?
Yeah. Well, and you see moms going overseas too to be nannies and different things. So it's not all about dads. It's just the family dynamic needing to stick together. And we'd like to see those family units sticking together more and raising healthy whole families.
Yeah.
I think that
so like if you're thinking about going overseas, or like you're in Fiji and you're thinking about going abroad, and you think that you have something that you could offer us as far as making our jobs easier or helping us with our business, like let us know. Hit us up.
Totally.
Yeah. Send us a DM because like I'm right now, even we're looking for people to help us with our social media.
Yeah.
And
we need a videographer.
I need a videographer because I want to release way more content than we're doing right now. I want to do a couple podcasts a week. I want it to be all videoed so that people can watch us talk, as boring as that sounds. But I just want more content. And so if you know anybody who, and we'll pay for everything. Like you're going to travel with us, you're going to eat with us, and we'll also pay you a wage. And so we're looking to add to our content team, and we're going to be opening a business in Suva in the next couple months, the one that's been coming for the last year and a half.
Oh my goodness. Okay, and once it's opened, I can't wait to sit and talk about the nightmare that opening this business has been.
Yeah.
It's just been a headache.
What do I say though?
What?
If it was easy?
Everybody would do it?
Yeah.
That's right.
So that's what we're excited
the
about.
Crazy ones that are doing it and happy to do it and continue to do it, but it hasn't been easy, and it's definitely been a source of stress.
Far from it.
Yeah, for us. So that's always been a bit of a hassle.
But yeah, so if you're thinking about going overseas, just hit us up if you think you have something that you can offer us.
Yeah, and if we can help, honestly, don't worry so much about us. We don't need a flood of messages. I think even more important, look at other options within Fiji, or at least if you're going to go overseas, look at how you can get your family or your wife over there with you. Because it's not about us. It's about keeping family dynamics within Fiji whole, or if that family unit has to go overseas together.
I think the awkward part with that, though, is that a lot of times you have to go over and get a job before they let you bring your family. Like a lot of countries, basically you have to be a contributor to the economy before you just bring in a bunch of stragglers in their eyes.
Yeah.
And so I think a lot of dads, go overseas for a couple of years and then they bring their families over if that's what they intend to do. And there's a lot of people that have done it successfully and their family.
That's great.
And that's great.
But I think, honestly, I get if that's what you have to do it. But actually have the intention of bringing your family with you, because I see so many people that go over and then they are gone for years and years and years, and they don't have the intention of bringing their family over. They just come visit once every few years, and that's not good enough. I'm sorry. It's not cutting it.
Yeah.
It's not okay.
Yeah, that's not.
It's not what your family deserves. Your children deserve. You guys chose to be together. And I think that, we'd have a better society if families were whole.
Yeah.
So. Yeah.
Man, we got a heavy rain coming here. Holy smokes.
Yeah, this is the hot season, guys. Afternoon showers, right?
Yeah. So. Yeah, our friend that we're house sitting for us, or caretaking his house for, is like, if there's a category, or if it gets to a certain category, leave. We're like
cyclone you were talking about?
Yeah, sorry. Oh, yeah, sorry. A certain category of cyclone, because this is cyclone season. He's like, leave. We're like, okay.
Oh. Well, it's a pretty solid house, so but I think it goes underwater here pretty quickly.
Yeah, we're literally right on the ocean, and so I'm a jungle boy if I was to be anything in Fiji, because we're from the interior, and so not used to, would not be familiar with experiencing cyclones on the coast.
Yeah, so we were like, okay, we need to have a game plan here.
Yeah.
If things go badly, where are we going? So
game plan is get out.
Pretty much.
Don't worry, buddy. We'll look after your place for you.
Yeah.
But we might have to
run for the hills.
Yeah, exactly. So we're at the part of the podcast now where we're going to play our game called We're Not Really Strangers. This is the couples edition, and this is the level 1 question called Perception. And we're playing this game because is it a game? You always say it's not really a game. It's more of a
John loves calling it a game. He's like, let's play the game. But it's a conversation starter. It's something that at night, John and I do business together. We do life daily together. It's just something that helps us not talk about those things and just gives us something more, more intimate or more in depth to chat about. So we can just talk about things and deepen our relationship and our connection more. So
yeah.
We're doing this in front of you guys because it's an interesting, unplanned thing to talk about in the episode.
There are awkward questions, so hopefully this is not an awkward one. Okay. Oh, that's not bad. What intimidated you most about me early on, if anything?
Okay, you go first. I gotta think.
For sure, you were ridiculously good looking, and so I didn't think I stood a chance.
Oh, that's so nice.
When I first saw you, so I was obviously intimidated because I originally met you when we were around like a big group of people, and I'm like, out of all the guys here, there's no way. And you kind of looked at me, and I was like, what? This is not making sense. This is not calculating. So I was intimidated because you're a really pretty girl, and yeah, you're also like really, like you were very confident. And so I was intimidated that like you could, like with your personality and that confidence, like you could attract anybody you wanted. And so I was like, oh, there's no way I stand a chance. So that's what intimidated me about you early on.
I think for myself, probably what intimidated me about you was maybe where your relationship with Jesus was at. Like I could tell that you really loved Jesus, and I had put myself into a spot in life where I was not really chasing after my relationship with Jesus. I was living just for myself, just because I was trying to distract myself from life happening. Some things that had happened in the last year were not the most amazing for me. I was feeling overwhelmed and just kind of wanting a distraction. So when I met John, I just went, oh yeah, he's what I want in a man. He has this beautiful relationship with Jesus, and I feel so less than, and I would not want to date someone living the way I'm currently living. So I felt intimidated going, okay, I need to be better. I need to do better, because why would if I was him, I would not accept the way that I'm living. And I want to be with a man like that, so I need to do better. And that was intimidating, just in the sense of like, well, that's a lot of pressure to have to like just be better, be my better self, be my better version, because that's what a man like him would deserve. And why would I want to be less than as a person? And yeah, I think that was hard to kind of come to terms with, like, step it up.
And you did.
There you go.
But you did. And now we're here.
Yeah. And we've had a beautiful relationship, and yeah, we're coming up on 12 years in July, and it's been, we've had a few rough moments in life, but I would say overall, if I look back at 12 years, I feel like it's been an relatively easy, beautiful friendship that we've had. And we are just growing a little bit stronger every year. And I wasn't sure what would Fiji do to our relationship. Like, we got into Fiji.
What do you think Fiji has done to our relationship?
I think it's actually made us better or closer, stronger. Like, I think adversity.
Like, if it all ended now and we had to not be in Fiji anymore, do you think we'd be better off than we were before we got here?
Yeah, I do. I think it made us struggle together and be more considerate of each other. And like be able to back each other up. Like, we came into the country during COVID and our finances were in the toilet. That is a number one stressor for most people, is finances. We had zero finances. We came out of that together. We jumped into a whole new culture, dynamic for our family. We weren't living in our own space. We were living in a dynamic with other people telling us what to do, having to respect their culture within the house that we're living in. I think like I'm surprised at how well we did. Honestly, if I had to say to you how we would do through all of that prior to living it, I would have been like, I don't know if we could make
Yeah,
it.
for life's funny like that, hey? Like life's funny in the way that if you knew all the things before, like how hard it would be, how you like you mentioned this earlier on in the episode, like you wouldn't have done it.
Yeah.
And it's like, isn't that the beautiful part about life, I guess, is that like if you did know it all ahead of time, it's like you wouldn't do it.
Yeah.
And like you would just be frozen in fear.
It's like
if you knew it all, you know?
It's like that silly saying, like, if life gives you lemon, make lemonade. You know, it's true in the circumstance of like, okay, when we got to Fiji, we had this ideal picture of like, this is how we're going to like move and execute our plan. And this is how the next 5 years will be laid out and how it'll work. And now we're moving across the world to execute this plan that we've laid out in our heads. And then we get here and everything goes sour.
Yeah.
And we had to make lemonade out of the situation. And I really think we have. Like, I think life is sweet right now. I think life is actually, like, it's hard, lots, but it's gone in a great direction that I would never have anticipated. So,
Yeah. I wouldn't change it for anything.
no. And our kids are so happy.
Yeah, yeah. Like we always come back to this, I know, but like our kids are just, yeah, they're so happy.
Well, look at
They're
them.
having the time of
Like
their
right
life.
now in the evening, they're out in the ocean kayaking. They're catching crabs. They're throwing dirt at each other. They're running up sand dunes with us. Like, I don't know. I would say epic childhood for sure.
Yeah, and I think that's actually something that we talk about often is like, you know, people that might follow us on Facebook or Instagram or listening to this podcast and like wondering about making big life decisions and like things that will change your life forever. And it's like, you know, if you think that it might be good for your kids, then I would put that as a huge positive.
A huge positive.
Yeah.
Because even when it's hard and we're having a really bad day to the point where I'm like, what are we doing?
Yeah.
And then I see our kids having the best day of their lives because they are not encumbered with the stress that, you know, we get to deal with. And I go, oh, never mind, totally worth it.
Yeah.
Totally
And
worth
also
it.
don't use your kids as like an excuse to not do things because
Yeah.
kids are so dang flexible. Like
Yes.
kids will they adapt. I mean, I had to do it my whole life. Like for those of you who don't know, like I spent time in Canada growing up. I spent time in Africa for 4 years growing up in Mozambique where they spoke Portuguese and I learned Portuguese fluently, and then I lived in Fiji and like I just adapted. I made friends. I have best friends all over the world. And do not use your kids as the reason to not do things because kids will thrive.
Yeah, and they're resilient. They're more resilient than we are as adults.
Yeah. And okay, take that with a grain of salt. I'm talking about kids in our age category. Like if you have teenagers, like I think you probably have to make different decisions.
Yeah, it's
then.
probably another level. But
Yeah.
young kids, they don't
Yeah.
know any better. They're happy to go with the flow.
Yeah.
And honestly, I think like even any choice that you make, big or small in life, like we have a lot of people back home, they're like, oh, I want to do this, or I'm not sure what God wants me to do with my life and all these things. And John and I always come back to like, okay, sometimes God will give you a clear direction or a clear yes or no. But if you're not sure, but you really want to do something, I think jump in with both feet. And as long as you're honoring God in your actions and the way that you're pursuing life and you're glorifying Him in what you're doing, then nothing's wrong with it. Why does God care? I always think like God doesn't probably care what you're doing, but it's how you're doing it.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I think go into life with that kind of focus of like, okay, how do I want to do this and how do I honor God with this? And I'm going to go for it. Unless I get a door completely like slammed in my face. So,
Yeah.
Yeah. If
I
you
think the thing that I struggle with honestly right now is like, what is a door slamming in the face? Because like say with this new business that we're pursuing or other things, it's like, man, there's a lot of headaches and there's a lot of hurdles to overcome.
True.
And so I'm having this conversation without having an answer. I'm just moving along, and I always am thinking, and and asking God for clarity is like, okay, is this you closing a door, or is this just something that like we just have to, and so like I'm trying to find the balance between like not overthinking every little thing that ends up being hard,
Yeah.
because it's like life isn't going to be easy either. So
No,
it's
and-
like,
and
oh, that's hard, that means
Hardship
it's a closed
creates
door.
perseverance,
Yeah.
right? And
Yeah.
then perseverance creates like a beautiful resilience in you, and like creates like a better person.
That's Second Peter. Second Peter, I think.
That's right. There's a verse that is.
Second Peter 1, verse 4-8. Yes, that's right.
You can look that up, hey?
Yeah.
Another time. But I think like sometimes there's roadblocks. You have to keep going with that. But I think okay, we haven't talked about that. I think God's powerful enough. If he really wants you to stop, you're not going to be able to jump over those hurdles. Like,
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, because I talk to people all the time. They're like I don't know if like this is like God's will, or like I don't, want to do things without like, knowing that this is what he wants us to do or wants me to do. And it's like, like God is God. Like if we're talking about this from a Christian perspective, it's like if we believe that he's omnipotent, which is all powerful, then like if he doesn't want you to do something, it's not going to happen.
yeah.
So don't stress about it that much. And just even hearing myself say that right now, it's like, oh, okay.
You're telling yourself.
Yeah.
We're working through our
guys, I'm currently trying to work through these things myself. All right. Don't have all the answers. So I'm less stressed after this podcast than I was before.
Good. I think we're going to wrap up for today. I think we've got a bunch of other work stuff to do. Kids are about to wake up from their naps.
It's about to start raining like crazy.
Yeah, and you're not going to be able to hear us because the rain is coming. It is. So.
Yeah, and I'd really like to thank the sponsor of this episode, Fresh Tea and Coffee. Just throw that in there again. Halfway between Labasa and Savusavu and Labasa in Sanganga is Fresh Tea and Coffee. If you want to stop for just a quick tea or coffee or relax in the air-conditioned lounge,
turn towards the police station.
Yep. Just a couple hundred meters up the road past the police station.
Yeah. So thank you so much for joining us. We'll see you on Facebook, YouTube, Instagram, all those kind of things. Crossing our fingers that everything goes well for the election. Hopefully we'll hear actually what party is going into power by this evening. And if not, I hope they wait till after Christmas because, we don't need any craziness over the holiday.
Yeah,
so,
exactly.
Yeah.
I'm going to get out here and go fishing for a bit.
Okay. Merry Christmas, everybody.
Yes, Merry Christmas.
We'll see you next week.
Talk to you soon.
Okay.
We're out.
We're out.